CBS News White House and senior foreign affairs correspondent Margaret Brennan joins us now by phone from Moscow. Margaret, let's start with this meeting with President Putin that was not on the schedule, seemed uncertain whether it would happen. What can you tell us?
Well, we found out that the meeting at the Kremlin with Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has now concluded. It went about close to 2 hours or so. It happened at the end of the day, but we had expected it, so the Kremlin hadn't confirmed it until basically when Rex Tillerson walked in the front doors when the press found out, because the Secretary's press corps was not taken with him. So what we can confirm is that he wasn't really kept waiting. He was swept right in after leaving the hotel about 30 minutes beforehand, and began and proceeded for about 2 hours. Syria was a big topic during the conversation earlier in the day with Russia's top diplomat, Sergei Lavrov. As to exactly what happened in the meeting with Putin himself, we hope that the Secretary will answer those questions at this press briefing shortly.
Before we talk more about the meeting with Lavrov, do you think that the relationship that we know that Tillerson had with Russia before sort of lent to the sway here and his ability to have the meeting?
Well, look, I mean, the reason you come to Moscow as the Secretary of State is to get FaceTime with Vladimir Putin. This cat and mouse game of will he, won't he, when he, will he meet, is something that always happens with Secretaries of State, to be quite honest with you. Whether it was Hillary Clinton or whether it was John Kerry, this is not something new. There's just a lot more scrutiny around it because of where U.S.-Russian relations are right now. But yes, it is remarkable, given just 2 weeks ago we were all talking about the Trump administration and its alleged ties to Russia on many fronts. But overtly, what we know is Rex Tillerson, as an oil executive, had deep ties here. He had a personal relationship, in fact, with Vladimir Putin, who awarded him the Order of Friendship. So certainly in terms of the chemistry, in terms of the meeting itself, that sets a certain tone. But walking in as America's top diplomat just a few days after the U.S. launched strikes on a client, in many ways, Bashar al-Assad of Russia, that's a very different type of conversation than anything you would have had in a clearly cut and dry transactional relationship as an oil executive.
Margaret, you mentioned that meeting earlier between Tillerson and Lavrov, and you mentioned Syria obviously discussed. Do we know any details or anything else that was on the table?
Yeah, that meeting itself, a bilateral meeting as they call it, between the Russian and American top diplomats, really laid out a lot of the main concerns in Syria. That is, look, as the Trump administration takes office, they've promised better relations with Russia, and the U.S. is still offering better relations to Russia. But as a first step, Russia needs to show that it will take a step back from Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian dictator who has been waging war against his own people for longer than 6 years now. That chemical weapons attack really drew a hard line for the Trump administration, and they laid up those terms today, saying, first step, you got to be able to step away from him and really open the door towards diplomatic talks. This isn't Assad leaving tomorrow. This is starting a political process to transition out he himself and then leave his regime or whoever can be included in this government in his stead. So that's where the sort of first terms are, the opening negotiation bid. And from there are a lot of other issues that also were on the table. Clearly, there's the expectation that Russia would have brought up sanctions. We just don't know to what degree that was hashed out. Those were put in relation to Russian meddling in Ukraine and that annexation of Crimea.
Well, Margaret, we appreciate the time, and we will check in with you after this joint news conference that we are awaiting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.